Hey, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you all to the September 8th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting. And this morning, we have the pleasure of having Imam Akib Zakhriyar from the East Cobb Islamic Center to lead us on our invocation. And then our pledge will be led by Sergeant J.O. Cade. So those who will and able, please stand.
Let us pray. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, our sustainer, our guide, always present, never oblivious. Our Lord, we ask that you keep us devoted in our righteous actions and pardon us for our error and transgression. Our Lord, we ask for safety, solace, and serenity amongst our nation. Our Lord, we pray that our actions display justice, our words translate to justice, and our hearts be filled with justice. Our Lord, we pray for peace, not war, love, not hate, compassion, not greed, unity, not division, and guidance, not ignorance. Our Lord, look after our teachers, our doctors, our first responders, and all of us who protect the lives and honor of each other. Our Lord, let us see each other as equal individuals, make us advocates for the truth, and a means of reform for a better society. Our Lord, bless our children and the people of our nation, safeguard our youth and elderly, and shower mercy upon this humble but honorable assembly. Our Lord, we invoke you to let us trail the path of selflessness, far away from the dangers of selfishness. Our Lord, thank you for the leadership of this county. Thank you for giving us the opportunity of bringing positive change in our communities, and thank you for inspiring us every day to make the world a better place. Our Lord, make us beacons of hope and peace for all humanity. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Imam. Thank you, Officer. All right, we have a couple presentations. I'll let Commissioner Burrow start out with the first one.
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to have the Daughters of the American Revolution with us today to celebrate Constitution Week, and also the Barbara Hickey Children's Fund Committee for Constitution Week. So if I could have, I think the DAR first. Thank you. Good morning. Hey, Emily. Yeah. You can give them to him. It's good to see y'all. Thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all you do. For those of you who don't know, the Daughters of the American Revolution started Constitution Week, or the celebration of the Constitution was started in 1955. So I'm going to read the proclamation. I can't read through this mess, but Constitution Week is commemoration of America's most important document and is celebrated the week of September 17th through the 23rd. It will be the 232nd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution on September 17th, 2019. Oh, that's not right.
That is right, but this year it's 233 for 2020.
Okay, sorry. We didn't change it, huh? Sorry. The United States Constitution is a symbol of the tenacity of Americans that have displayed throughout history to maintain our liberties, freedoms, and inalienable rights. And whereas the celebration of the Constitution was started by the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1955, Daughters of the American Revolution petitioned Congress to set aside September 17th through 23rd annually to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was later signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And whereas the purpose of Constitution Week celebration is to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending the Constitution, inform people that this important document is the foundation of our way of life, and encourage study of the historical events that led to the framing of the Constitution in 1787. And whereas the Daughters of the American Revolution also built a structure in tribute to the Constitution of the United States. Constitution Hall, which is a performing arts center, opened in 1929. Now therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2020 as Constitution Week in Cobb County, and thank the Daughters of the American Revolution for its tireless advocacy and behalf of all citizens. We encourage all residents to learn more about this important document and celebrate the freedoms it affords us. This is the 8th day of September 2020. Thank you. Andy, you want to say anything?
Yes, please, thank you. Thank you so much for making time for us today. We brought you the little sweets to sweeten your day. I hope you all enjoy them. I know it's a busy time. I'm the chapter regent of Fielding Lewis chapter of Marietta. We've celebrated 116 years this past year. And I'd like to have our ladies introduce themselves and their chairmanship, please.
I'm Emily Hewitt, and I'm co-chair of Constitution Week.
I'm Betty Mackey, and I'm chair of the Commemorative Events Committee.
I'm Marilyn Carroll Palmer, and I'm chapter historian.
I'm Marcia Stemme, and I'm on the Constitution Committee.
And I'm Mary Nimsgern, and I'm co-chair of Constitution Week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Quick picture. Okay, there we go. Smile. There we go. Yeah, smile. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Do you want to take a picture of this outside? We'll bring it back in.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you very much. Thank you for looking after the Drive corridor.
Thank you, Betty. And now the Barbara Hickey Children's Fund Committee, come forward, please. We're honored to have Jim Hickey, Barbara's husband, and Ryan Hickey, her son, with us today. And all these lovely ladies. This originally started through Cobb Republican Women, and Millie Rogers, who's in the audience today, was very instrumental in starting this with Barbara in Cobb. So, how y'all doing? Good. Ryan? He's going to take pictures. Whereas the United States Constitution is a symbol of the tenacity Americans have displayed throughout history to maintain our liberties, freedoms, and inalienable rights. September 17, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of this important document by 39 brave men at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Sorry. Whereas the framers established a strong federal government able to provide the energy and stability its people require while simultaneously limiting its reach and reserving all powers not expressly assigned to the federal government to the states and the people. It is vital that all Americans read, study, and understand the greatest document of human liberty and help protect the freedoms set forth in the Bill of Rights. And whereas Constitution Day launched in Cobb County through the efforts of Millie Rogers in 2010, who was the immediate past president of the Georgia Federation of Republican Women and the past president of the Cobb County Republican Women's Club. Mrs. Barbara Hickey worked with Ms. Rogers in the initial efforts and was joined by the Constitution Day Committee of the Cobb Republican Women's Club. The committee delivered constitutions to elementary students in both Cobb and Marietta city school systems. And whereas Barbara Hickey established a Constitution Day Fund as part of the Barbara Hickey Children's Fund in 2018 to raise money for distributing constitutions to elementary school students in Cobb County and Marietta City Schools. The continued work of supporters is a great way to help educate our youth and honor the efforts of those who came before them. Now, therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 17, 2020 as Constitution Day in Cobb County, and thank the Barbara Hickey Constitution Day Fund and its supporters for their involvement in the Constitution Booklet project and efforts to educate the public. We encourage all residents to read and study this magnificent document and celebrate the 233rd anniversary of its creation. This the 8th day of September 2020. So things are a little different now with virtual learning. So tell us how what you're gonna do for Constitution Day.
Well, our plan is to be able to still deliver constitutions to the schools in Cobb County because the teachers have a relationship with the parents where they send things home for them. So we'll still be able to deliver them. We can either electronically send them the teacher's guide, or we can give one to them that they would have that's hard copy. So we're excited about having the change. The Marietta City Schools, Rose, do you want to tell us how we're going to handle that?
Be glad to. We are going to present to them the manual also to go to the teachers, and they can also go online to do it through the internet. Thank you.
And do y'all want to introduce yourselves?
Oh, I'm Roseanne Hall, and I'm the chair of the Barbara Hickey Constitution Day Fund.
Good morning, I'm Kim Shirk. I'm the immediate past president of the Cobb County Republican Women's Club and the current president of Georgia Federation of Republican Women, and I've been a longtime member on the committee.
I'm Raisha Stemme, and I'm on the committee.
That's true. That's true. Good morning, I'm Rose Wing.
I'm Barbara Hickey's husband.
I'm the son.
Now we need a picture. Thank you, ladies, for all you do.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. There we go. Here we go. Smile. Yeah, right. 3, 2, 1. Good.
Thank you. Good job.
Commissioner Cupid. Oops. Okay.
Good morning. If I can have Miss Irene Barton join me this morning. Hey, how are you? Doing all right? Good. Thanks for joining me. Good morning. Today I have a proclamation to present recognizing September as National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and September 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day. During this time, millions of people around the world lift their voices to share messages of hope and healing. With all of the uncertainty and challenges that we currently face, positive and uplifting messages are needed more than ever. Educating people about suicide, mental health, and substance abuse problems, and the way they affect all people in our community is essential because resiliency begins early, and it can be strengthened and reinforced through the lifespan. And whereas every death by suicide directly impacts countless family members, friends, loved ones, and by extension, the entire community. When people receive behavioral health services and community support, they begin the road to wellness and recovery. Cobb residents should be able to access high-quality prevention, support, rehabilitation, and treatment services that lead to mental health stability,
recovery, and healthy lifestyles. And whereas National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month inspires millions of Americans to raise awareness, build resiliency, and find hope, we encourage relatives, friends, coworkers, and providers to recognize the signs of mental health issues and guide those in need to appropriate services and support. Now, therefore, we, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 2020 as National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. We encourage everyone to share messages of hope and seek appropriate help when needed. This, the 8th day of September 2020. Thank you. Yes. Would you like to share any words on behalf of this?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Irene Barton. I'm the Executive Director of the Cobb Collaborative. We know suicide can be a difficult topic to discuss, but really by continuing to hide it is the worst thing that you can do, bringing it out in the open along with mental health issues and letting people know that you care about them, that you are looking forward to seeing them tomorrow, that they can get help, and being trained in some very fundamental conversations that you can have, which the collaborative is offering this month and throughout the year, is really what we can do as a community to help with the mental health issues that we know were already there before the pandemic and are only exacerbated by the public health emergency and the ensuing economic and financial crisis that our community is enduring.
I absolutely agree. Thank you, and appreciate you helping us to bring awareness to this, especially during this time.
All right, here we go.
I'm smiling, it's hard to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have now, as part of the meeting, to conduct a public hearing, and I'll let the county attorney come up here. For the first one is give us some background on a public hearing with regard to comments and input on proposed amendments to Chapter 6, 78, and 134 of the official code of the county.
Correct, Your Honor. Yeah, I know this happens all the time when I'm used to appearing in court, and so.
Well, I do have that look.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate it.
Especially with the mask, yes, sir.
I've got the cupcakes. I just want you to remember that, all right?
Yes, Chair and Commissioners, this is the second public hearing for the proposed code amendments to Chapter 6, 78, and Chapters 134. The first, we advertised it for three consecutive Fridays. We've had the first public hearing, and this is the second public hearing. We'd ask that it be declared open for the public hearing, and then there's some other motions that we would make afterwards. So.
Okay. So before I open up the second public hearing, the background, each unlimited number of speakers. You each get 3 minutes. And we'd like, if you would, please let us know where you live in the county for the public record. So that, I now declare the second public hearing open on the proposed amendments to Chapter 6, alcoholic beverages, Chapter 78, licenses, permits, and businesses, and Chapter 134, zoning of the official code of Cobb County. Would anyone like to make comments with regard to this proposed code amendment changes? Okay, seeing none, I now declare this second public hearing closed. All right, then the next order of business is to adopt a resolution. So I'll let the county attorney address us on what those words might involve.
Yes, Chair. Item number 4 is resolution. And we move that the Cobb County Commissioners adopt a resolution of evidence and findings of negative secondary effects for sexually oriented businesses as set forth in the Section 78-320 of the proposed amendment of Chapter 78 in the official code of Georgia. Resolution is an attachment to item number 4.
All right. So that background, I now move that the Board of Commissioners adopt a resolution of evidence and findings of negative secondary effects of sexually oriented businesses set forth in section 78-320 of the proposed amendments of Chapter 78, licenses, permits, and businesses of the official code of Cobb County, and authorize the chairman to execute in said resolution and any other said necessary documents for the said purpose. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, the next item, number 5, is discussion on to approve the proposed amendments to the chapters as discussed previously. So I'll let you do the background again, Mr. Rowling.
Yes. And it'll be back to the particular motions, the public hearings that we've had regarding the amendments to Chapter 6, the Alcohol Beverages Code, Chapter 78 regarding licenses, permits, and businesses, and then some change in the language in Chapter 134. We'd ask that the board approve those proposed amendments.
Okay. So that, I make a motion the Board of Commissioners approve the proposed amendments to Chapter 6, alcoholic beverages, Chapter 78, licenses, permits, and businesses, and Chapter 134, zoning of the official code of Cobb County. Have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I now call a motion. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. The next order of business is a discussion on to adopt a resolution setting the fees for sexually oriented businesses, licenses, and sexually oriented businesses, employee licenses as referenced in section 78-324 of the amendments to Chapter 78 of the official code of Cobb County. Mr. Rowling, you have the floor still.
Correct, Chairman. Section 78-324 regarding fees for the amendments that you just passed to the code is set forth in this resolution. We ask that the board approve, now that it's approved the secondary effects, then it adopted the code amendment changes. We ask that you approve this resolution regarding fees related to that.
Okay. So that, I make a motion the Board of Commissioners adopt a resolution setting fees for sexually oriented business licenses and sexually oriented business employee licenses as referenced in section 78-324 of the amendments to Chapter 78, licenses, permits, and businesses of the official code of Cobb County, and authorize the chairman to execute said resolution and any other necessary documents for said purpose. Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I now call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Okay.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland. All right, now we have, I believe, public comment. How many speakers do we have, Mr. Rowling?
There are 2 that have signed up, Chair.
Okay.
Denise Starman. Sorry, I couldn't able to read that. Okay. Then the second one is Monica Delancey.
Good morning. Thank you, Monica Delancey from the Riverside community. I'm here to speak about a number of issues, but first I would like to just go over some history of what I've been doing for the last 4 years on a consistent basis. I've been attending not only Board of Commissioners meetings, but I've been attending Marietta Housing Authority meetings, Cobb Collaborative meetings, South Cobb Redevelopment Authority meetings, and each of these meetings that I attend, again, for a consistent basis for the last 4 years, I've been talking about the eviction crisis that's been going on in Cobb County. Basically, on Fridays of the month, Cobb County hold eviction courts in the magistrate courtroom on Fridays at 9:00 a.m. and again at 1:30 p.m. And there's at least 300 people that's seen on Friday. So if there's 4 Fridays in a month, that's 1,200 people that make it to the courtroom. So there's even more people that have been filed eviction on. It's just 1,200 people make it to the courtroom. And most of the people that I've witnessed, because I've been in that courtroom myself, are black people, black families that have been facing eviction before COVID. And when we talk about how do people, get to a eviction court, well, we have to talk about wages. We have to talk about the fact that businesses are paying their essential workers. They're paying their entry-level workers less than $12 an hour. And when you break down $12 an hour, that's about maybe roughly, if you're lucky, $2,000 a month. And if you're saying that rent is going to be $1,000, and what's left over is maybe money for transportation, maybe money to take care of your kids, it doesn't leave much to have. So definitely, when we talk about this rental crisis that's been going on, a person is going to see themselves, if they're the adult in their household, there's no other support coming from Section 8 vouchers, if no other support coming from rental agencies, the person is going to see themselves in eviction court roughly every 2 years, guaranteed. And that's if you're not able to work it out with your property management company before going to the eviction court. And so we brings us to this, to tie everything together. We're going to talk about stabilizing our schools and stabilizing communities. Every district has a Title I school in their district. And the way a Title I school gets that, I guess, label per se, is when how many households fill out an application for free and reduced lunch, right? And when they fill out this application, for a family of 4, the income has to be less than $36,000 a year for a family of 4, all right? So, yes, like I said, every district, District 1, 2, 3, and 4 has a Title I school. District 4, if we have to do an estimate, District 4 has, out of all their schools, at least 80% of their schools are Title I. That means 80% of their schools have children that come from households that are economic disadvantaged. So if you walk around District 4, 8 out of 10 children is receiving free or reduced lunch. And if you look on your street, that means every other child that's attending public school is coming from a household that's economically disadvantaged. So before COVID, 2020, before COVID, our communities were already struggling. There were already challenges. So, like I said, when I go to these meetings, Marriott Housing Authority, when I go to the Cobb Collaborative Homeless Prevention meeting, there's other people in the room, nonprofits, government agencies, but the businesses are not in the room. The businesses that are paying these low wages, they're not there. There's no strategy to say, hey, if we bring our business to Cobb County, nobody's saying, well, where are these people going to live? We're going to come to Cobb County because we're getting tax breaks. We're going to come to Cobb County because we can find workers, but yet, we don't care if the workers are living 20 people in a household, right? So now we're talking about social distancing. We don't care that maybe the worker has to drive an hour to get to work because that's the only way they can afford a place to live. And also, maybe if they happen to find a place in Cobb County, maybe we don't care that that place they found is neglectful. They're not doing maintenance issues. And the reason why that apartment complex may not have been doing maintenance issues because they were charging reduced rents so that people can manage, right? So all this is tied together, especially as we look at what's going to happen beyond COVID. But we look at election year, we're voting for our judges, we're voting for our commissioners, we're voting for our city councilmen. They're calling, testing, asking for votes. But who are they asking for votes from? They're asking for votes from people who may not know where they're going to live in the next year. So thank you for letting me share with Thrive on Riverside Rental Association.
Thank you, Mr. Lancy. Is the previous speaker here? Okay, please.
Okay, that's Denise. Okay.
Good morning, Commission and everyone. My name is Denise Stroman. I'm here today because during the pandemic, I had lost my job. Right now, I'm in between jobs, part-time. I have reached out and emailed the Cobb Commissioner about getting assistance for my rental. I got a reply to reach out Must Ministry to Felicia Stewart. I contacted her, no response, no email or anything. I also had a research with Star C. I had reached out to the landlord, the managers. They're saying that the owners would have to fill out the paperwork, but the paperwork is too complicated. Because of the paperwork is complicated, the landlord, the managers are saying that they will get back to me as soon as possible. And I wanted to know, is there any way if we could reach out to the Star C or the landlord to see if they could, if they can get some help on filling out the paperwork when we have the money with Star C for rental assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jessica Renee.
Great day, everyone. We spoke a couple weeks back, so I appreciate you all having me again today. As he stated, I'm Jessica Renee. My family name is Henry. The reason for me wanting to speak today is because in the last couple weeks with having some help, which is so appreciated, is brought to my attention that the people who have the ability to actually do things are not using the proper channels correctly. In regular words, I've been having great difficulty even being able to acquire more work and the ability to show funds, still having difficulty with the amount of children that I have. So I'm being told by property owners, by realtors, that I have too many children and they're afraid that I'm not able to clean my home. So it's odd to me that in the midst of all of this, not only is there a great ability to be able to evict people for supposedly owing monies for rent, and myself, I've been evicted and I don't even owe money for rent, but that has hindered me from renting a property. That has, COVID-19 has allowed the property management for Fairburn and Gordon Apartments to be able to put false information on my rental history. And I just don't understand why there's so many different people that say they want to help, what can we do to help? And there are really ways to help, but everybody's so confused, everybody's so jumbled on what to do, when to me it seems so very clear. If I have an ability to pay for a property, whether it be rented or own it, then if I have a person who's backing me, like one of you, then why would it be, to me, still an opportunity for any person that connects me via you to be able to steal from me or take from me? So through this 2-week process, there's been a person that I was connected to me, a very prominent person, and for what I'm being told, they were attempting to get extra money from me because I wasn't supposed to pay them. I was supposed to pay another realtor. So this whole issue has created still a window for people in, I guess, in your positions and in other realms of authority to be able to do things that's untrue, that's allowing people like myself, a mother of 8 children, to be out here left and everybody's like, oh, you can do it, just keep putting your best foot forward. But what happens when we do? Still nothing's coming. I'm still working. I have now a 3rd job. That's still not enough to be able to say, well, what's happening with the house or a rental property? The people who are writing the grants aren't writing the proper grants, obviously, so maybe then we should have someone like me to have a conversation with whoever the grant writers are, whoever's approving the grants, to say the money should be allocated really for this, and this. Not to, again, give people a sandwich bag and say, this will help you. The help is so appreciated, but it's so temporary. It's minute in the bigger scheme of things. And this whole process We had to pack up, when I say it's me and the children, all of our personal things that we could in our van. Not only did they throw us out of the apartment that was raggedy, but they towed our van with all of our personal effects off of not even owing money, property. So the people who are out here that are having financial issues, I feel more sad for them. Like, if I'm having great difficulty having to be able to find a place, and I have multiple jobs, then what about the people who don't, who are not able to keep a job and to have the finances, like like one of the sisters said previously, you make $2,000 and then you have to spend out at least $1,000 on your rent. Well, right now I'm being helped with 2 hotel rooms. That's $900 a week. That's so excessive. I'm not saying it to say I'm ungrateful, but it's like, oh my God, you are a mother and you think about the numbers. That's $900 a week, $1,800 every 2 weeks. What could I have done with $1,800 in 2 weeks? A house down payment is that amount. So instead of people wanting to keep talking, I'm wondering, where's the action? Must Ministries, unfortunately, that's not an action plan. I've been through Must Ministries several times, and there is no real help with Must Ministries. So whatever you all are doing with them, or giving them the chance to do, or the avenue, rather, to be able to help people, well, I don't see the help.
Ms. Renee, I'm sorry, your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll try this again. There's nobody else signed up, but let's make sure there's... Okay. We have someone else who wants to speak?
Sure, come on up. Just let us know who you are, please, and where you roughly live in the county.
Thank you for letting me speak. Chairman Ott, members of the board, and guests. I am Linda Vann, case manager for Kids Home Initiative at Sweetwater Mission. I have served for 5 years assisting homeless families into stable housing and preventing evictions. I'm here today to advocate for extremely low income and low income people who have been adversely affected by COVID-19. They cannot be here, so I wish to be their advocate. The families I've served in the last 5 years are single moms with children, single dads with children, married couple with children, and grandparents with custody of their grandchildren. And a commonality runs through each of these families. It is their desire to provide a stable home for their families, a home where they can experience family life in a safe and secure environment, a home where chaos does not reign. Children can have a quiet place to study and to do homework, a place where the family comes together for meals and communications. Parents can rest and restore to be ready for the next day. In short, all the things that we seek in a home. This is a basic need and a commonality that all of us experience. COVID-19 has impacted our economy in many different ways. One of the biggest impacts has been on personal income for people. Due to loss of income, it is predicted that 30 million people in this country will be homeless by next year. Unfortunately, the hardest hit will be extremely low income and low income populations. Middle income people will also feel the impact of this. With this funding that is proposed to assist 3 housing or help agencies here in Cobb County, it would only assist a small percentage of that 30 million people. The funding proposed would enable Must Ministries, Center for Family Resources, and Sweetwater Mission to easily prevent at least 1,000 evictions a month. This is not just about keeping people from being evicted, it is also about the impact of all of the children who would become homeless. Homeless children are 4 times more likely to show developmental delay than children who are housed, 3 times the rate of emotional behaviors than children that are housed. 50% of homeless children experience anxiety, depression, and withdrawal, compared to only 18% of stably housed children who do not who do not experience significant emotional turmoil. Homeless high school students can experience significant education disruption. Only 11.4% are proficient in math, and 14.6% are proficient in reading compared to their peers. Homeless students are twice as likely as non-homeless students to have to repeat a grade, be expelled, get suspended, or drop out of high school. High school dropouts, over 60% of those students who do drop out will become homeless adults. The impact on education leads to higher cost in future social service assistance and loss of productive citizens in our community. It becomes a question of, do we assist now or later? A community can be defined by how we raise up the lowest population in our community. I believe that as a community, we are responsible for those members of our community who need our assistance the most. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for all the Seawater Mission does for our community. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. You can go ahead and scroll it for those all here and at home.
There's no one else to speak?
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Over here.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We had on Friday, we had agenda item number 53 that was sent out.
Right.
Should I make a motion to put it on the consent agenda?
I'm going to make a motion to put it on regular. We'll vote on that
regular.
time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure. Okay, with that, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Second, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Okay, Commissioner Gambrill, I'll allow you to now make your motion to add your agenda item to the agenda.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to add agenda item number 53 to the end of the agenda. This is to approve an amendment to the MOU for Home Free USA.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Do you want to do that now or just wait till the end of the, wait till number 53? So we've added, so let's go into over here. Let's do it over here, okay?
Okay.
So, sure, absolutely.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, after our discussion in the work session and with Star C, which was just approved on the consent agenda of removing the 2 months or $3,200, it was changed to up to $4,800. We're making that same change to the Home Saver MOU as well.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Oh, we have not. Right. I'm waiting for her to make the motion to approve. So,
Okay, so I would I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 53.
and we have a second, all right. Go ahead.
That doesn't change the total amount. That's just
No.
increasing, like Star City,
Correct,
up to 48.
correct.
I just wanted to.
Okay. Okay, hearing no other discussion, I'll call a question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, and now we're on to number 38. Commissioner Cupid, I believe this is your agenda item.
Good morning, everyone. This agenda item brought today is in response to the gap that was recognized in the number of residents that were not addressed through the housing programs which the county has set in place. One is through the Star C program, which provides rental assistance to tenants of qualified apartments that are in Cobb County, and qualified apartments are apartments that are multifamily apartments in schools that are considered to be failing or underperforming schools in Cobb County. In that list of multifamily apartments, it does not address all multifamily apartments when you look at what is a qualified apartment. The Home Saver program that we have addresses residents that are in a home as a homeowner and who may have fallen behind in their mortgage and are at risk on getting foreclosed. That program, as was just recently modified, is able to assist those residents up to $4,800 that meet specific criteria. There are a large number of residents that we have here in Cobb County who are renting, who may live in a multifamily apartment not covered by Star C, who may be renting out of a home. And we have been hearing from these residents since the pandemic about assistance, and we've have opportunity before us today to address that gap. In putting together a proposal over the past couple of weeks with different providers in Cobb County who work in this arena, we were hit with a bit of a new consideration, and that was the federal government's emergency order through the CDC. And so we've taken into account that that order allows for tenants to not be subject to the eviction process if they can show that they are seeking assistance through a program or a local government. And we feel that this program, in addition to the other programs provided, provide residents that opportunity to show that they are seeking assistance through one of these programs. Also, in light of residents who may be in need of help, the change in the emergency order last week also brought to light some vulnerability in our residents who may be landlords of apartments and who also may be struggling, as they may depend on that income. They may be struggling to make ends meet since that emergency order is in place until December 31st. So I'd like to look at all of the programs that we have here as providing a gap measure, not only for our residents, but also our landlords of properties here, so that we can continue to keep Cobb County as viable as possible during this time. In consideration of feedback received from commissioners in looking at the emergency order and in speaking with multiple nonprofit organizations, we have a proposal here today, multiple MOUs provided here today. And we got to this point because initially there was a thought to work through one umbrella organization and to have them disperse dollars to multiple organizations. However, there was a desire to simplify that process, and to just narrow down to more specific providers in the county. And so that's what we've done today with 3 organizations of Sweetwater Mission, of Must Ministries, and the Center for Family Resources. Those 3 organizations have been with our county for decades, helping our residents with housing needs. They aren't the only providers, but they are providers with a strong history of working with the county. I do want to recognize that we've had other organizations at the table, St. Vincent de Paul, the Salvation Army, Zion Baptist, and Zion Keepers, who also work in the housing assistance arena, who I think could have also been viable providers. But as a desire to want to meet the commissioners where they were in limiting the number of organizations that received assistance, we chose these 3. I recognize that in comments today that there were comments made with respect to one particular organization. And I can share with the board and with the public, since the pandemic, I have worked with some individual families in trying to get assistance through housing. And some of these issues are layered, some of these issues are nuanced and complex, which is why when I've reached out to organizations, I've reached out to multiple providers, because sometimes where one provider may not be able to assist due to the nuances of their program, another provider has been able to assist. So the opportunity to have these 3 here provides a network for them to be able to refer matters to one another. I'm trying to continue with this proposal. We do have a matter that is, do you still want me to continue? I do see they're trying to address a matter that's at the back of the room. They're very nuanced, and I found in working with the 3 organizations that I've shared, sometimes one organization has been able to help to a certain extent, another organization may be able to pick up in another area, and so there is a partnership that's in the works in addressing these issues. And that partnership of housing support extends beyond those 3. But again, I know that these 3 have been working together to address some of these issues. In the original proposal that I had that was provided to commissioners, we've reduced the complexity and also removing funding that was going to go to magistrate court. Magistrate court is our court that does oversee the eviction process, but with the emergency order, there was concern that the number of applications going to magistrate court would be reduced. And so instead of hiring additional position, Magistrate Murphy is still going to connect with providers and have them come on site, and he's going to refer landlords and tenants that may come to the court to those organizations, and just operate as somewhat of a one-stop shop should people come to his court seeking assistance with eviction. But we do have an opportunity again with that order to direct people directly to organizations so that we can be more, instead of addressing evictions on the back end, we have the ability to do that on the front end. Trying to see anything else. There was some concern about not having tight enough requirements in this program, similar to some of the other programs, and we've addressed that through looking at the Star C and also the Home Saver program, and our county attorney has put in different requirements in here that do speak to those matters, and so I do believe that those things have been addressed. There have been some things that have been added in this proposal that I believe are a little bit tighter than some of the other proposals, but I do think that in October we'll have the ability to see if there are any gaps and come back and address those things. But at the end of the day, we do have residents, I think, that can seek help through this program, that continue to reach out to the county, that don't qualify for other programs and could qualify for this program, so that we can help as many families as possible retain their housing. And I'm seeking the support of the board in approving these measures by first approving the memorandum, excuse me. I see you did this in one item. I'm going to ask the board members to support me in my motion to approve emergency funding to provide rent relief for qualified Cobb residents who've been adversely affected by COVID-19 through the service providers that I shared today.
I'll second that motion and open the floor for discussion.
I
Commissioner-
have several questions.
I'll go down this way, okay? Commissioner Ott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Cupid, I want to thank you for making the changes that you made, which address most of the issues that I had. I still have two issues that we talked about last Friday, and simply stated those are that the tenant have some skin in the game, as it was referred to. And also my concerns that with 3 providers and no mechanism to ensure that a particular person comes to the program once, like the other 2 programs, I can't support it in its current form.
In the current form, it also provides that the providers do keep a spreadsheet of who's been receiving the funds that they refer to.
And I saw that, but that does not prohibit someone from going, I mean, yes, they keep a tally of it, that just tells the commission who's got the money. It does not prevent someone from going to each one of the providers to get money.
Again, they will look at that, and this is a practice that they already have amongst organizations in referring to one another. But again, the MOU provides that they do refer to check that there's no double dipping amongst the organizations. And I see them nodding. I don't know if any of the providers want to come forward and address that. But I can also say right now with the current programs, there's nothing to say that organizations are not double dipping with the 2 other organizations. And I know for a fact that residents are going to the nonprofit organizations within this program and getting help with the 20% and then going to the Star C program. And so there's nothing in the Star C program that provides a check to see if that resident is receiving additional funds. There's nothing in that program that checks to ensure that that resident is going in their own pocket to get those funds versus seeking help from somewhere else. And I think the fact that that is going on shows the need to look at partnership to make sure that we are keeping the resident in their home. And if there are other agencies that have helped with that, as they have with the Star C program, that may occur. However, with this program, there's very specific language, and also in speaking with our county attorney and with the 3 agencies, a commitment for them to continue what they've always done and checking with each other to see how persons are going through the program so that there is only one organization that's providing assistance.
Commissioner Burrow.
And I don't know if these are questions for legal or if you want to try to answer them. Okay. From the very beginning, I had said that I could support one outside service provider. I just think for the accountability and even for what Commissioner Ott mentioned, we know some of these same providers are have other resources, CDBG money and others. So, and then I just had some questions.
Okay.
Reading this, it seems that the tenant or the landlord can apply.
Yes.
So wouldn't the responsibility be on the tenant to show the need, or?
There's going to have to be a settlement agreement between both parties. However, both parties can approach the agency stating that they need assistance. And I'm not sure, I've had so many conversations, and I can't state the specific forum this was shared in, but some of our providers have such strong relationships with apartments that if a tenant is having issues, there may be instance where the landlord may reach out to the provider. However, there still is no movement until there's an agreement of both parties.
And what if it's a landlord that rents out several homes, not apartments, but because this is what we're trying to fill the gap with, home renters.
Exactly.
So, is it by location, by address, and could the same,
If you don't mind, we have some service
landlord-
providers who are here, and I could speak to it, but because I see them nodding, I'd rather have those that deal directly with that be able to speak to that.
Good morning, Melanie Kagan with the Center for Family Resources. This proposal really is an expansion on things that we've already been seeing over the past couple of months. And while I appreciate there have been several things put in place that have been assisting, there is still a gap. Our agreement when we spoke with legal and with Lisa was that we would maintain record by address of who we were assisting so that we would only assist one at a time. So this pot of money can only be used once for one address specifically. So we would maintain that document and share it, and somebody would be analyzing it weekly to ensure that we don't have somebody coming in 3 or 4 different times to 3 different providers to get 8 or 9 months worth of coverage versus just the 3 or 4 that's agreed upon in this. And to address the CDBG funds and other funds that are available, that's part of the gap. Unfortunately, the way that government funds are released, it's a very short window. Most of these, even the CARES unit or CARES Act money that's been released through CDBG covers about 3 months. And in some cases, it only covers either the current month and 2 past months or the current month and going forward. So there are a lot of restrictions around those funding sources. In any case, for all 3 of us, I know at least for Felicia and I at Must, and I think Sweetwater has a little different mix in terms of their recipient funds and who they receive funds from, but we always analyze our clients when they come in to see what program suits them best. So we're trying to utilize the money that should be used appropriately. So if somebody comes in and they only owe 1 month, they may qualify and be better suited for one of our ESG or our emergency funds through CDBG. And we would do that before we would release funds from this. And we only release funds to apartments or to property managers, I should say. We don't ever give funds to the clients themselves. We always require proof of the lease, so they have to have some kind of documentation that legally states that they are leasing, that they have an agreement, that there is back rent due. And we've worked with Judge Murphy to ensure that we have some kind of template that they can sign on a sworn affidavit that says that that's the money that's owed and that it's a legal standing proceeding.
Okay. I think there needs to be an application deadline for review, not a first come, first served basis. Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, I did a comparison of the three programs, and that's not in either one. So I don't understand why that would be a limit, why that would be required here.
Well, the way we've done all the other ones, there was a deadline for applications, and then, depending on eligibility and approval.
In my review of the applications, there's no deadline.
Yeah, there's a deadline for the business grants and the nonprofits, but I don't believe there's one for Star C or for the food insecurity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the 3 organizations will just accept applications and show the reimbursement
They would get
from the CARES
reimbursed.
Act money once they're approved, and whoever submits it, they'll do them one at a time as they come in.
It would go through a reimbursement process through the county.
Okay, and they receive 8% of the total money for each application?
It's 8% of the total, and there was some discussion about the 8% fee. The Star C program has an 8% professional service fee. The Home Savers program has a 15.8% from my calculation, and then the proposed rental assistance program has 8%. This program here today.
Okay, and the money goes directly to the landlord, not the tenant? Like Star C, or the provider? Okay. And then they disperse it directly to the landlord? Okay. I don't see anything in the in the MOUs for the 3 service providers or in the general MOU agenda item, it talks about Cobb County, but it doesn't say they have to be a Cobb resident or the
Okay.
property has to be in Cobb.
Yes, it does. But I can find that specific language because again, I could put a chart here on the screen. I have a chart that lays out the different requirements across all 3 programs. But if you can bear with me, I will just refer back to the document. This is the old one.
Okay, under purpose,
Is
It says
Debbie,
in an effort to
Deborah,
aid-
Bear- I think, could Deborah help you for a
Yes,
second,
thank you,
Commissioner?
yeah.
Because she obviously helped you writing the MOU.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melanie.
Good morning, Debbie Blair. In Section B on page 2 of the MOU, it states any Cobb County resident. So it does have to be a Cobb County resident.
unless I missed that. I think that's just, still would be more comfortable if it was one outside vendor.
I
service
think we
provider.
recognized when we approved the Star C program, we all knew there was a gap in housing and that we'd have more than one. And when we approved the Home Saver program, we knew that we would have multiple organizations here. And again, in working with our service providers, this is such a nuanced program that many of them have to work together to be able to ensure that multiple are getting addressed. I know in one instances, one provider addressed the hotel stay while they were looking for a more secure circumstance for the resident long-term. The ability for them to leverage from each other allows them to be able to help residents as efficiently as possible, especially considering that the organizations have such little staff and they've operated leanly, but particularly in the pandemic, they're operating even leaner, which has, culminated in even us having a nonprofit grant program, recognizing that some of our nonprofits are running leaner, just as our businesses are. But I do believe that we reached a significant compromise in narrowing down the number of potential organizations. I mentioned 4 others that have a strong working relationship with the county to 3.
Would they be able to apply for hotel rental? This needs to be for
Under this program,
the landlords to be.
it is, there is no, there's no coverage for hotels under this plan.
I was giving an example of how the organizations work together, that sometimes where there may be an issue with a resident, you'll see several of them come together, or one might help with an emergency program, another one might help long-term. There's just a collaboration that helps to ensure that that resident is getting assistance.
And just to point out, Star C, if you are staying in an extended stay, they have the capability to use the CARES funds to get family into a apartment complex. So that is in part of in our Star C.
In the Star C program, it provides that they are able to provide monetary assistance for a month and also fees for them to secure a security deposit for other more stable housing.
Okay, and then you mentioned that they would still be working with Judge Murphy in magistrate court, because I thought that position, temporary position, was taken out because of the CDC stay on
Correct.
evictions.
There's still a working relationship there. So tenants may still reach out, or landlords may still reach out to the court. So they've just provided their space as a place for people to get assistance. And so there is a clause in here, or a statement in here, that provides those organizations will collaborate with magistrate court in those efforts.
Does Judge Murphy know that?
No, he does, he's aware of that, and the reason there were some fees built into the original proposal was when we were going to be, when we could do through Cobb County evictions. But with the CDC order as of last week, the evictions are on hold again. So there is no need to have extra court time and a temporary judge to handle the evictions. So that's why that's removed.
He had already planned also to use, like Commissioner Cupid said, to work with service providers to address this issue. So that was always part of his plan.
So he's going to use existing staff and services.
Right.
And we've worked very closely with Judge Murphy in crafting the proposals here today.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Burrow?
No.
Commissioner Gamble?
Okay, first, I'd like to correct the comment regarding Home Saver. For those who receive a grant, it's only a 6.5% service fee, or $300. Regarding the consideration we have here, MOUs as presented seem to be a combination of the Star C and Home Saver programs previously approved by the board. However, within the first paragraph under the purpose is the same, it does not reflect the qualifications of the three proposed organizations tasked with assessing and administering these funds. What is the intent of the MOU? Is it to provide rent relief as stated in the agenda, or another program to assist renters who are facing eviction? Star C clearly defines they offer rent payment solutions to those threatened with evictions. These MOUs presented here today state this program targets tenants renting in any rental unit except for those Star C qualified. Yet the structure of the two programs is completely different and lacks impartiality and creates a bias depending on where the applicant resides. The CDC order issued September 4th states to be able to receive the protection under this order, the tenant must have used best efforts to obtain all available government assistance for rent or housing. This agenda item restricts the ability of all renters to be treated equally. Therefore, I am unable to support this as proposed.
Yes. Unfortunately, I didn't catch everything that you shared, Commissioner. I can provide first that out of the total amounts requested for the Home Savers Program, 4.8 million of that is for CARES funding, 900,000 of that is for professional service fees. The organization gets paid $300 for application, whether or not somebody goes through with the program or not, and that's stated in the MOU. So Home Saver will be paid regardless of whether or not someone gets assistance to the program, as long as they've applied. Also, there's $750 per application. Yes, and that may be a 6.5% fee for an application, but the additional fees that total up to $900,000 account for 15.8% of the $5.7 million that's been awarded. And of that, only 4.8 is to go towards residents. With respect to other elements of treating people differently, yes, we recognize people will be treated differently. We knew that from the outset, which is why I had such great consternation about the Star C program, because we knew we weren't addressing people across the board. We already knew that we were going to be treating some renters differently than other renters because they were in certain multifamily properties. And then at the time, I didn't really grasp the fact that the qualified apartment means that not all multifamily apartments are even being included in it. It only means that those that are near those underperforming schools are. And so when we looked at the list that Jackie sent out, it stated what those qualified apartments were, and there's just an even larger gap. I've also known that I've dealt with a resident this week who was in a multifamily unit, and similar to a comment that was shared today, the landlord just did not want to go through the process. At the end of the day, all of these programs are to provide rental assistance, but the nexus between all three of our programs is that they are all COVID related. We are trying to keep people off the streets. We are trying to keep people in homes. We are trying to keep people from being house in large groups where the pandemic can spread by providing housing assistance, whether it's through a Home Savers program, whether it's through Star-C or this program. We are able to help our residents, our Cobb County residents, be able to stay in safe, secure housing. We can look at the specific terminology of each of these, but all of these programs, rent relief programs, mortgage relief, deterring evictions, they are all about keeping people in secure housing during this pandemic. I cannot say there's anything more or less that we're trying to do. I think that the organizations that have been working here in Cobb County, their whole goal has been to partner with the county to make sure we have a stable county and keeping people in their homes. These funds, again, give us that same nexus to make sure that if there's anything that's pandemic or COVID related, that it could be covered through these funds. And yes, can people be treated differently? Yes. For all of our programs, there's a max of up to 4,800. Some people might not need 4,800. Some people might need 3,000. Some people might need 2,500. They would be treated differently. But for all of them, the consistent thread throughout all of them is that they're able to stay in their home and keep from being evicted.
Okay, a couple of comments from my side of the fence. I tried to look at someone that's out there that's going through these circumstances. And as I sit here listening to this very informed discussion, it is, a lot of people have done a lot of homework here. I can't help but think that they'd be saying, help. I need some help here, all right? We're doing some really great discussions here, but the reality is I need some immediate help. So there's this compassion side that I know all of us feel here. I think that, as you all know, I always look for the middle ground. And I think that Commissioner Cupid here, starting with our discussions almost 2 weeks ago on this issue, has worked to find that middle ground. She's made substantial compromises here by bringing down the initial fee, by reducing the number of service providers, a number of areas too. So I think that she's done her part trying to find the middle ground. I really believe that. And I believe my comments are out there that given what she's tried to do, that I would support this. I understand the issue about the service providers. I think what draws me about the service providers is my discussion with Joe Murphy. I can only imagine the frustration he's going through right now, where he was right there ready to help this community of people that need our help, and then some federal bureaucracy comes down with some edict that has absolutely no idea what's going on here on the ground level. So it's up to us to try and jump in here once again, call in the cavalry. So I think that what I'm asking the board to do here is that if we're concerned about the service provider, I think all points of view are valid, and I really mean that. But I also want to say that this is trying to cover a gap that is complex and layered. I mean, that was the term. And if she believes that the three service providers are the ones that are going to cover the various gaps that are out there, I would ask you to use the same regard for her that she did for yours when you provided your service providers. Basically, it's a professional courtesy that she's asked us to look at these service providers, and I would like to look at it in those terms. Okay. So like everything else in the world right now, these are very complicated issues, but I'm going to support it because the need is there. We need to get beyond the talking, and we need to get into the walking, which is to start helping these people stay in their homes right now under very trying circumstances, and there, but for the grace of the Lord, we should be grateful we're not in their shoes. Commissioner Burrow.
Would you be willing to consider a one vendor, one service provider?
Ma'am, I think we've narrowed this down significantly to the 3 from the 7 that were at the table and who are helping. I think that
how will they apply?
I think it could end up straining any one of these organizations to have to take the task of working with just the number of people that could come forward. We're talking about opening up a program to the entire county to help the 47% of our renters who stay in homes. Plus, with the other 53%, we could be helping out a significant number of them who stay in multifamily properties. I think just in talking to our service providers, that could pose a significant challenge.
For the three that are named, but an outside that can do it and does this kind of thing, I think it would give us more accountability for, and what about St. Vincent de Paul and Salvation Army? Who are they going to apply to?
They were here at the table. We would have loved for them to have been a part of this. There was a proposal that was initially provided to the commissioners for us to work with one agency who would then work with those who have a strong history here in the county. It was from Judge Murphy, my discussions, Sherry, and other discussions that were had, that there was not an appetite to operate a program in that manner. So we chose to directly reach out to 3 organizations who have a history of working with the county and who came up in conversations as well.
But what my question is, can those other organizations apply, their clients apply through MUST or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They can still apply as they can still apply for the 501c3s. They're 501c3s. They could apply for those funding.
Yes.
They have access to those funds.
Well, I know there's a need, and I know that time is of the essence as far as the CARES Act money.
Yes.
And it's a little disappointing that this was discussed back when you started the food program, you started the Star Seed program, and you brought us the Home Saver program, and we're still discussing this.
So help us pass this today, Commissioner.
I still have reservations about all the.
All right. Well, I think we've had all the points out there.
If this doesn't move forward today, we have residents who are continuing to reach out to the county who don't have help. I just don't understand if.
But Commissioner Cupid, we are accountable for this money, and we can't just give out CARES Act money without accountability and.
All right. I think we all know how we feel. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and call a question. All right.
Chairman, I would just like to address this seriously, because if this doesn't move forward, there are people in this room who would be impacted. There are people watching who would be impacted. We have Judge Murphy's office who was in here. We have service providers who are in here who could answer these questions if they're outstanding concerns.
I hear you. All right. So with that, I'm going to go.
I'm sorry. I really would like to see.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and call a question. All those in favor of this agenda item, please raise your hand. All those opposed? So the motion fails. Commissioner Boyce and Commissioner Cupid and Chairman Boyce in support. Commissioner Ott,
Mr. Chairman,
Burrell, and Gamble in opposition. And then Commissioner Ott, you have a question?
Yes. In light of the fact that I don't think anyone on this board disagrees that there is a gap, I think that the issue, excuse me,
please.
I think that the issues, as were discussed, were not with the need or the desire to fill the gap. I think the issues were with the method that was being proposed. On Friday, and I hope, Mr. Chairman, you had a chance to see it, but Commissioner Gambrell had an MOU with the Home Saver program that would address this issue. It would be a single provider. It had the $4,800, similar to what was in the other 2 programs. So I would like to make an alternate motion to agenda item 38 to approve the MOU as provided by Commissioner Gambrell to this board on Friday.
Okay, we have a second? All right, discussion.
Yes, there's discussion.
Go ahead.
I just want to make it very clear, if this moves forward in this fashion, that this really weakens our ability to work together as a board, and our level of partnership, not only amongst us and respect amongst commissioners, but our agencies that serve here in Cobb. We gave away $8.1 million to the Cobb Board of Education, knowing that we did not know if our students had the infrastructure. We currently have 8,000 students without laptops, but we gave that money away, and we said we were hands off, because we respected them and their ability to work as a board. Here, we have organizations that have a strong history of working with the county, and all of a sudden, the same commissioners that refer people to those agencies have an issue of accountability with their ability to use those funds. I think that this is also a great misfortune, especially when they have a history, not only over the past decades of working, but are continuing to work with organizations day to day, without the support of the county. I think that it weakens our partnership as a board, it weakens our partnership in the community, and it weakens our partnership with Judge Murphy's office, who's also been working diligently. The same attorney who drafted the other agreements for housing drafted this agreement. We worked with her to ensure that the terms were similar. When I read the MDJ article and they referred to this as Commissioner Cupid's agreement, and there was critique of a board member, as opposed to the board member sitting, coming together and working through this constructively. We're pointing fingers at commissioners instead of pointing fingers to the public and saying they're the ones that we need to help. I think that this is more about showing how there's a double standard in how we treat our commissioners. There's a double standard about how we treat our agencies. And this just goes to show that rift on this board. And it's unfortunate, especially when I have provided and assisted other commissioners in their efforts. But, and to speak specifically to the Home Saver program, the only reason I did not support that was because it undermined our partnership that we had in the community. It had nothing to do with the continued concerns I had about other aspects, including the fact that there's a 15.8% service fee that goes with the organization that you're going to approve today. So with that, again, this weekend's partnership, we're going to be spending much more on professional service fees with this program than with the other one. But if this is the way the board wants to operate, then at least the public can see it for what it is.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner, for your comments. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to, I know I talked to some of you with the Home Saver rental portion. They would be able to start taking applications today. So for those that are in the audience listening, they could start taking applications today and start reviewing the need and assessing the demand. So they are, it can easily be converted from the homeowner side to the renter side, so they could be up and running today to start serving the need.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments?
Yes, I want to thank those that did come forward to help put together what we had here today, because there have been some nonprofit organizations that have been working for months, including the Cobb Community Foundation, again, working with Must Ministries, the Center for Family Resources, Sweetwater Mission. I just want to let you know, from my perspective, I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I apologize that you have commissioners on this board that feel that you cannot be held accountable with these funds, even though you've been held accountable, even though you've shown yourself worthy as a partner of the county with other dollars that we've received. And I just hope that we just continue to serve and do the best that we can in helping residents here.
Okay, with that, I'll call a question. All in favor of the motion?
If I may, Chairman, I just want to make sure we understand what the motion is and that it has a second.
Okay.
The motion is to approve the MOU with Home Saver for the apartment rental program that we discussed or saw the MOU on Friday at the agenda meeting.
I would ask that we pull it for review and for review. I don't understand why we would review this other one for 3 weeks. We just got this Friday without review, without discussion.
Well, I know one of the reasons I would want to move forward is for the comments I made earlier. We need to start getting this funding out there. And I realize this is not the forum or the model you would propose to using, but at least it's a model that's going to finally get money out there to address this gap. So, there's no perfect solution to this. And every commissioner has their point of view, and, I think we've heard them here. Commissioner Burrow?
The fee in the MOU for Home Saver is 6%, not 8 or 15 or.
Ma'am, I'll share with you that the amount of.
300 per application.
That's per application.
2 million is up to 120,000, which is 6%.
And that may be on the new Friday proposal, I assure you that the fees, no, the one that was provided before has 4.8 million coming from the CARES Act, 900,000 going for other fees, including marketing, program setup, application, and when you tally that up, they're getting a 15.8% fee.
Okay, well, that's regarding the home saver program. I'm just going to talk about the rental program. So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We have
I'm sorry, who was the second?
There was a second by Commissioner Gambrell. Oh, all right, I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrow. All right, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, it passes 4-1 with Commissioner Cupid in opposition. All right, continue with the regular agenda. Transportation.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. The first item for consideration is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank grant agreement with the State Road and Tollway Authority for Old 41 Highway, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Burrow.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. It passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our second item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Glosson Enterprises, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $158,525 for Discovery Boulevard sidewalks.
Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, so moved, and part of the discussion, we discussed at the agenda session that there are some fill-in-the-gap areas on this side. We may have an addendum that would take additional funding out from another sidewalk project that I have, so there may be a supplement to this of about $150,000.
Okay. And we have that in your record? The comment she's making about the,
Yes, sir.
about the modifications there?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
we have a second. All right, any discussion? Call the question. Please raise your hand if you support it. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners authorize procurement of mitigation credits from ACF River Basin Group LLC in an amount not to exceed $201,010 for stream, wetland, and open water impacts associated with Willio Road over Willio Creek Bridge project.
Commissioner Ott.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
We have a second. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a utility relocation agreement with the Georgia Transmission Corporation in an amount not to exceed $3,899.11 for preliminary engineering of facilities on the Mars Hill Road over Alatoona Creek Bridge project.
Commissioner Gambrell.
So moved.
We have a second. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with On-Chef Construction LLC in an amount not to exceed $6,277,184.50 for Mableton Parkway pedestrian improvements, Phase 1.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
I'll second it. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And our last item is requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve a letter of coordination and concurrence from the Georgia Department of Transportation for impacts to multiple county trails associated with the I-285 Top End Express Lanes project, and authorize Erica Parrish, Department of Transportation Agency Director, to sign the letter on behalf of Cobb County.
Commissioner Ott. I'll second it. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Parks.
Good morning. Our item this morning is for the board to approve a project agreement with Controlled Access Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $125,485.19 for the installation of the county's enterprise access control and surveillance system in 4 Cobb Parks facilities. We ask that the Board of Commissioners approve the agreement, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Gambrell.
So moved.
The second. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. My first item this morning is request that the board approve a project agreement with Controlled Act, to authorize the amended appropriation of funds from the sale of property located, pardon me, get a restart here. Scott's gone out of town, so I'm getting the property ones as well. So our first item this morning is to request the Board of Commissioners authorize the amended appropriation of funds from the sale of property located at the 4489 Ackworth Industrial Boulevard in Ackworth, Georgia, to reimburse the 2011 SPLOST Fund, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Roll.
So moved.
We have a second. Discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Okay.
Our next four items are from Property Management. We request the Board of Commissioners approve supplemental agreement number 2 to the contract with Fire Systems, Inc. in the amount of $22,481 for additional work related to the sprinkler system at the Public Safety Training Center located at 2435 East-West Connector, Austell, 2016 SPLOST Program X1050, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Sure.
I said this at the agenda meeting, I just want to say it again. I just want to thank Sharon and Scott and all your folks. We've worked real hard to get the agenda items real clear and easy for the citizens to understand how the SPOS money is being spent, and actually you can look through these 4 agenda items, how it just literally mentions each one. So I commend you for the efforts in making it clear.
Your property's done a great job at that. So.
Okay. Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Ott. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
As our next item, we request the Board of Commissioners approve supplemental agreement number 1 to the contract with Johnson Controls Fire Protection LP in the amount of $18,922 for additional work related to the fire alarm system at the Public Safety Training Center located at 2435 East-West Connector, Austell, 2016 SPLOST Program X1050, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Discussion? Call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
As our next item, we request the Board of Commissioners approve supplemental agreement number 1 final to the contract with Garland Design Build Solutions, Inc. in the deductive amount of $23,221.85 and final contract amount of $1,961.15 for restoration of the existing exterior wall and roof at the Public Safety Training Center, 2435 East-West Connector, Austell, 2016 SPLOST Project X1050, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents. So this is a savings, by the way.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Discussion? Call the question.
Thanks for the savings.
Sure. Yeah, $330,000. That's really good. Thank you. It passes 5-0.
And our final item this morning, we request the Board of Commissioners approve supplemental agreement number 1 to the contract with Controlled Access, Inc. in the amount of $23,825 for additional purchase and installation of the county's enterprise access control and surveillance system at the Public Safety Training Center located at 2435 East-West Connector, Austell, 2016 SPLOST Program X1050, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Discussion? Call the question. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Chairman. I'm voting against it. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Jason Gaines, Cobb Community Development. I'm here today to talk a little bit about the Johnson Ferry and Shallowford Master Plan. In 2018, at the request of Commissioner Ott and several community members, staff engaged the community concerning the Johnson Ferry Shallowford planning effort, otherwise known as JOSH for short. This effort was led by the Planning Division of Community Development with support from staff from Cobb Parks, Cobb County Water System, and Cobb DOT. This morning, I just want to take a few minutes to give you a brief overview of the plan, the process, and the resulting recommendations. And following the presentation, I'll be available for questions, and we're asking that you all adopt the recommendations from the plan. Next slide. Okay, all right, so purpose of the plan, 4 basic points. To create a redevelopment strategy focused primarily on the commercial node around the area of Johnson Ferry and Charlotteford Roads. I also want to talk a little bit about preservation, and I'll talk more about that later, but we're understanding that this area in general is primarily established single-family residential neighborhoods. So we're looking to preserve those while at the same time provide some redevelopment opportunities and policies associated with that commercial node. Policy guidance that would be supplementary to the comprehensive plan, a sense of community pride, identity, sense of place, to establish a more unified community, so to speak, and just overall quality of life for residents and business owners within the study area. Okay, so like our comprehensive plan, we've got elements associated with JOSH, and unlike the comprehensive plan, which has roughly 12 or so elements, we've got 5 core elements regarding the JOSH plan, which you see there on the screen before you. Process breaks down into the same basic 3 steps as our comprehensive planning process, with a heavy emphasis on community engagement, and you'll hear me talk about that a lot throughout the presentation today. Okay. Here's a map of our study area with an inset to show its location in the northeast corner of Cobb County, bounded by Fulton County on the east, about maybe a half mile or so south of Post Oak Strip Road to the south, going all the way up to the north along Sandy Plains Road, just shy of the intersection of Sandy Plains and Highway 92. Wesley Chapel Road forms a good portion of the western boundary of the study area as well. And I just want to say that the study area was smaller originally when we scoped this out, but through community input, we expanded the study area to include more of these established residential communities. So yes, community engagement, the core of all planning processes. We initially started this in 2018, as I mentioned previously, and we conducted 3 public meetings in the spring of 2018, which included, as one of the main exercises, an image preference survey, which uses different imagery from different places to show size, scale, landscaping, architectural design, building mass, things of that sort, just to kind of gauge people's feelings on what a redevelopment scenario could look like. There were some concerns about what was contained in that initial study, so we paused, we regrouped, and we reworked the image preference survey, and then came back to the public with 3 more meetings in the winter of 2019. Which was very satisfying to those who were engaged with us through the community engagement process. So that part of it was successful. It got the results that we were looking for as staff in order to build a plan, as well as kind of assuage the fears, so to speak, that some of the community members had about what was contained in that initial image preference survey. Virtual engagement, even prior to COVID-19, was a big deal for us with this project, as well as it was the first time that we used GIS mapping to create a website where people could use maps to identify areas within the study area and send us pictures, notes, comments, any little thing that they might want to show us that we could do without actually setting foot on someone's property or in a creek or something of that sort. So that was a big deal for us as well. Okay, so here's our plan framework. You've got a vision and guiding principles, and I won't read those, but that is the core of this plan, and that was derived directly from public engagement. We had several exercises where people would just write one word about how they felt about certain aspects of the planning process, really based on the elements. And this was the result of that. So again, community-driven, community-purposed. Okay. So now let's get a little bit into the recommendations. As I mentioned before, preservation was a big piece of this as well, in conjunction with redevelopment. So when you look at from the land use perspective, these two character areas, suburban residential and commercial transitional. Commercial transitional is your redevelopment focused. Again, you see that large area along Johnson Ferry Road, bounded at the north by Shallowford. That's our primary area, and we'll take a deep dive into that in a minute. We also have one of those areas a little bit west along Shallowford near the intersection of Lassiter Road, where there are some, there's a small pocket of community, commercial uses as well. But again, the vast majority of our study area is established, well-maintained, single-family residential neighborhoods. And we just wanted to emphasize that that character area is intended to be preserved and not have any substantial changes proposed through this project or through the comprehensive plan. Okay, so now let's dive deep into the Johnson Ferry Shallowford node. We've got two proposed future land use map amendments identified by areas 2 and 3 along the western side of Johnson Ferry Road there. Then you see the focal points for those proposed land use changes, as well as small area policy guidelines that we've proposed for this. And those would be created as part of our 2021 comprehensive plan update that we do every year in January. But of course, we've got January 2021 coming up, so that's why I mentioned that specifically. One point that I do want to bring, and this was asked, I believe, during the work session, about the Planning Commission's recommendation. And their recommendation was to remove what was shown on the previous map as Area 3, and I'll go back real quick so you can see it and make that connection. So the Planning Commission's recommendation was to remove Area 3, and that was based primarily on a concern raised by the property owner there and their legal representation. So that was the main driver for that recommendation from the Planning Commission.
What is that area?
That is that's the lake that was previously drained as part of the Maddox property.
Okay, that comes up to Waterford,
Yes,
waterfront, okay.
I believe it is Waterford, but yes.
So, is it just the green part?
Yes,
or
the
that
green
whole-
part, this labeled Area 3, is what the Planning Commission recommend removal of.
And Commissioner Burrow, some of that was, no. Some of that was based on, and I don't know if Jason's going to cover it, but I'll cover it, conceptual plans that are in the master plan. And those are conceptual only. They're not requirements. They were just kind of more illustrative than anything else. And so the whole discussion about 3, because right now the lake isn't there, it's been drained. So the whole idea of creating a lake feature, there is no lake. And what got hung up on was the fact that there was an illustrative conceptual plan that showed a lake. There's also one that shows like a creek. There's one that shows a trail. But they were simply illustrative to show what could potentially go there, but by no means indicative of what had to go there. And so that's where the confusion comes from. I think the intent of the community was to at least address the fact that there is a creek there, there was a lake there, and that any plan coming forward would kind of take a look at some sort of feature to not just build over it. Would you, that's pretty much what the community
That is
thought.
an excellent representation of that, yes, sir.
And on page 39 of the book, of the proposal.
That's where the conceptual plan is.
It's got a trail and community park. I mean,
But that's one of the conceptual plans we're talking about that was purely illustrative as potential uses. It's not saying this is what will go there.
I think the term to use is scenario.
Right,
Yes.
yes.
All right. I had the same questions.
okay, I'm just kind of concerned how you're gonna identify or take out a section
Well,
in
and
between when there's no funding associated with what's gonna go
Well,
there.
all right,
to
let's
begin with.
let Jason get through because we'll address the funding issue because the chairman and I talked about that. That there is no funds committed by any approval of this master plan.
Right.
Correct.
So what is gonna be identified for number 3 that was taken out?
I'm not going to take it out.
It's just a recommendation from the planning
It's a recommendation
commission
from
at
the
this
planning
point.
commission. It has
Okay.
not been removed.
So what is it going to look like
It's going to look exactly the way it does now.
on page 39?
Everything's going to remain the
Okay.
same. And the reason for that is this was 2 years in the making, and the reason I don't want to take it out, and what I was going to say later, was the fact this is what the community said they wanted. And the community suggested various options, and so the whole purpose, what's different about every one of these 4 plans is it was not a consultant that came in and did it. It's where you could say, well, that's what the consultant thought should go there. This was a community-driven event, in this particular case, for 2 years, and all of these things were proposed by the community as possibilities to be considered. And so I don't want to remove anything from what the community said that they were interested in looking at. And Jason will tell you that this community was very clear in what they thought.
Right, but if you leave in a community park and trails and all that, you're on private property for one thing.
They are simply possibilities to consider.
It's,
They are not mandating that this board in a future zoning, which we actually have a zoning coming forward for this
Okay.
property in October, it does not require the board to say you have to have this or you have to have that. That's the point that the Planning Commission missed, was the fact that it does not say you have to do those. There was some question because if you look at, for example, the Johnson Ferry study, it has similar things in it that says some possibilities that the community said would be interesting to consider for streetscapes and the way the road was set up if Johnson Ferry was redeveloped. Those by no means required that the county go in that direction. They were just illustrative of what some of the community that participated in the study process said.
I've also heard you say, Commissioner, that you didn't support plans that weren't funded, and that looked as if it was going to obligate funding in some respect. And so to put in trails, I mean, I've seen other proposals brought forward with trails and parks that you are not in support of for the same reason.
This is what this is used for, as a guide for our developers or the community. When a developer comes in, and I'll use an example, in the Johnson Ferry plan, there are pedestrian light designs, there are different other aspects of the Johnson Ferry aesthetic qualities that the community wanted. And so as different variances and zonings have come into the county, we've asked the developers to go look at the plan and include into their plans components that are in there. And so similarly with this, and it's being done in Vinings, there's a trail that the Cumberland CID is going to build that comes directly out of the Vinings Vision Plan. So there are guidelines not for the county to spend money, but for developers in the community, because Vinings, I think, has raised some money to pay for some of the things that were in their master plan.
like the Kent Road guidelines.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Johnson Ferry guidelines.
Yes.
Yes.
But, yeah, they're guidelines, though, they're not
They're
mandatory.
guidelines.
And even when the developer comes in and develops it, we request that they go by the guidelines and put in street lights with the streetlight district and, you know, the decorative street lights and park benches or whatever. But it's not mandatory and it's not funded by the county.
Right. And I think the point that Commissioner was trying to make was that this is in that same vein.
Okay, it's just, I just don't know how you could even put in concept a park and trails on private property.
Well, you can't, but that's why there's multiple, I got confused too for a little while there, and I realized there were just scenarios of proposals of how to possibly use that land. They're just giving options. They're not mandated options.
And I will tell you that one of the zoning that's coming forward, that I've seen a preliminary plan, takes some of the components from the study and includes it in the plan that they're bringing forward. Not all of them, but they actually went and looked at this draft and crafted the zoning application that they're bringing forward with in mind what the community said they wanted. Because think about, when we deal with the zoning, what is the single unknown that a developer has to deal with is what is the community going to support and what they're not going to support. And the whole purpose for all these master plans, all 4 of them, was to give the community a voice to say what they want in their community, instead of a developer just coming in and saying, well, we're going to do this. And then we have, a room with 100 people in it saying, we don't want that. And so this is one of the components that during the creation of the draft plan, which is like the 3rd, well, in this case, it was the 6th public meeting, this was one of the ones where we went back and forth on with whether or not to put in the conceptual plans or not, and the community asked if we would put them in just for illustrative purposes.
Commissioner Gambrell.
Sure, in listening to this conversation, Commissioner Ott, this is kind of like the rezoning we had last month up near SunTrust. I don't remember the name, where they went in and put the lanes in to help with the traffic control up there. So that was something that was kind of voluntary based on the environment that's up there, the situation. So to me, this is just kind of saying, this is how we're envisioning it going. And again, it's optional, but most developers are willing to do that when it helps fix a problem.
Good. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. I'm almost to the end here. Here's a list and illustration of some of the recommended transportation improvements. Again, speaking of funding, these are not necessarily funded, but they could be considered possibly in future SPLOST, or maybe even as part of some of the discretional items associated with the upcoming SPLOST, like the sidewalk money, for instance. Other grant sources could also be pursued to pursue some of these projects, particularly with the pedestrian safety and the safe routes to school portions as well. Parks, we talked a little bit about that just now in that conversation. Just some of the ideas and overarching concepts regarding parks development, and some of this kind of blends with stormwater, as you see a lot of public facilities these days. Parks facilities, they double as major stormwater infrastructure pieces as well. Old Fourth Ward Park in Atlanta is one example of a regional illustration of that. Again, stormwater innovative techniques, kind of what I just was referring to. Existing infrastructure, maintaining it, upgrading it, and just educating everyone involved on what impacts downstream could potentially occur from changes in development patterns. And then there's a sense of place piece. I talked a little bit earlier about community identity and sense of pride. That's a big component of this piece. Potential design guidelines creation. We talked about Johnson Ferry during that conversation. Design guidelines were not created as part of this effort, but they could potentially be a future effort that my staff would undertake. The pedestrian light district, underground utilities, and the creation of a stakeholder group or some sort of neighborhood or community association that would kind of be the driver for a lot of these initiatives associated with sense of place. That is the conclusion of the presentation, and as I mentioned at the outset, we're asking for the board to adopt the Johnson Ferry Charlottesville Master Plan.
Commissioner Ott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I want to do is thank Jason and his staff. This was the 4th one of these that we did, and probably by far the hardest. And I think some of it was when we did the first one, Powers Ferry, going into it, I think everybody, before we started, knew that the community was interested in a redevelopment plan. On Johnson Ferry, we knew that they were pretty much wanted an aesthetics-related plan. And in Vinings, we knew they wanted a protection plan. When we got to Josh, we had no idea what the community was going to want. And as it morphed over time, it actually became more of a protection plan similar to Vinings than it did anything else. And the community was very vocal and very opinionated about what they wanted. A lot of the pictures that Jason has here are ones from the visual preference survey. If you're not familiar, it's as simple as saying park bench A, park bench B, trash can A, trash can B. but all the way to, and something that we had not done before was types of buildings or intensity of a building and the stormwater features you saw. So that's kind of where we had to kind of retool and come back. But one of the things that has been very successful with the other three is the fact that it's real simple for a developer or anyone, even an existing property owner, to come in and redo or rejuvenate their property and know exactly what the community is looking for. Because community support in any kind of development project makes it that much simpler to move it forward. But as Commissioner Gambrell said, and an example, and we don't even have a plan on Windy Ridge, but the very nature of the fact, the conversation that the applicant had with staff and everything, it's like, hey, we could really use this down in the future. And so the applicant added in the extra lane. And so one of the things that we have seen over the course of the now 4 master plans is applicants being much more willing to come in and offer some of those things that the community has said that they wanted, which, kind of works for everyone. And as a result, just drive up and down Powers Ferry Road. Yes, there's a few things that some people were not happy about, but in general, it has worked really well. And a matter of fact, Powers Ferry, the initial one, has already gone through its 5-year plan update. And so, we learned a lot about the community in this discussion. And one of the other things, and we didn't do the 4 plans for this, but with my retirement at the end of the year, and with either one of the 2 candidates that are running, never having been on the Planning Commission, never really being involved in any part of what the board does, they have a lot to learn when they show up. And all 4 of these plans give them a great opportunity to see what that particular community has said they want in their community moving forward. And so it's an invaluable tool for my successor to kind of get a quick lesson on what each one of these 4 communities is looking for as the community grows and prospers and folks stay there. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I make a motion to approve the Johnson Ferry Shalford small area plan as presented with no changes.
Okay, we have a second. Comments? Sure.
Why wouldn't you leave 2 and 3 recommendations from the Planning Commission? I don't have a problem with taking out number 3.
My understanding, what are the other ones that they recommended, Jason?
I don't have it in front of me, but I know
It says
that one was, go
The
ahead.
recommendations will remain recommendations. No funding is
all right.
obligated at this time.
Yeah, let me
And
add.
the third one, the next one says, the community can use the recommendations as guidelines for civic groups to establish and implement as they find feasible.
Okay, and my mistake, I was going to add that to the motion. So in the motion to approve the master plan, I want to put in there, whether it be recommendations from the Planning Commission or clerk's notes, that in no way does the plan obligate the county to expend any money towards any of the projects described. They are listed simply as guidelines or potentials for future boards to put into a SPLOST or the community to raise money. But I want to emphasize the fact that it in no way obligates the county to spend any money on those projects.
And I'm sure Commissioner Burrow will second that.
And these are guidelines and
Yes.
and civic associations can use them.
Yeah.
So you're good, you're okay with 2 and 3, just not removing number 3.
Okay. Any other comments, Commissioner Burrow?
No, that's,
Okay, Commissioner Gambrell?
Well, don't we need a second to the amended
we-
motion? I'll be the second to the amended motion.
Oh, I thought Commissioner Burrow was going to say it's involved no
she
funding.
seconded the first motion, so she has to agree to the.
Oh, okay, all right,
amended
okay.
motion. Correct, Bill?
Actually, after the after the motion's already been seconded, then it becomes the board's motion at that point in time, and you do not have to, whoever made the second does not have to agree to it.
There you go.
There you go. We'll split the vote. We'll split the second. All right, any other comments?
That's why we have
All
Bill.
right. I want to make sure that you attach the video of this hearing to this plan, so we can play it back in future years to buttress what Commissioner Ott said here about, that does not obligate the county to any funding.
We should play it back for future commission meetings where the commissioner doesn't support other master plans.
Okay, so, because I do know there are people out there who will take the wording that's in this master plan, because I too read the master plan. And I had the same issues that she did, but since it's been very clear by the commissioner that this is no intent, it's simply, recommendation for consideration, then I'm fine with the motion as presented. Any other comments? With that, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Congratulations, Commissioner Ott. Okay, thank you, Jason. I believe the last action for the board is to approve reappointments to the Region 1 Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities Planning Board. I believe I can make that motion using all four of those names. Is that correct, Bill? I don't have to do separate motions? That's presented in the agenda book?
Correct.
Okay. So that, I move the Board of Commissioners approve the reappointment of the following members to the Region 1 Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities Planning Board. Mary Lou Pagano for a term to expire on August 31st, 2023. Kariba Tucker for a term to expire on August 31st, 2023. Helen Riley for a term to expire on August 31st, 2022. And Michael Shatri to expire on August 31st, 2023. Have a second? Second. Discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. All right, so I'm going to start with Commissioner's comments. Commissioner Gambrill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we need to learn how to prevent the spread of laurel wilt during a virtual lunch and learn. We now have 3 confirmed cases of laurel wilt disease in Cobb. This is an invasive disease that kills trees. Our UGA Cobb Extension staff will host an informative lunch and learn webinar at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, September 16th, where participants can learn more about this woody disease and how to prevent its spread. The webinar will qualify for 1 ISA continuing education unit, and registration for this event is free. Our senior services food donations are in need of donations, and our Cobb Senior Services will be collecting shelf-stable pantry foods and other items. You can call their office to set up a time for delivery of your donations. And then our Cobb Senior Services will be hosting a drive-up service for Cobb residents age 60 and older to get this food on from 11 to 12 p.m. while supplies last. You will be required to show an ID, and there is no appointment needed. Our first distribution will be on Thursday, September 10th at Riverside Epicenter, Thursday, September 17th at the Cobb Safety Village, and then Thursday, September 24th at our Cobb Senior Services. Then our Parks Department is busy again with our drive-in showcase of new musical acts and movies. This year, the series will be a drive-in and showcase new musical acts and movies. This fun event kicks off the 3rd weekend in September with 2 features. Friday, September 18th, there will be a showing of Dirty Dancing with a performance by the Neon Queen, an alternative ABBA band. And on Saturday, September 19th, a showing of the 5 Heartbeats with a performance by the Soul Knights, a Motown and Philly Revenue act. In October, the series culminates with a showing of Rocket Man on October 16th with a performance by Beyond the Yellow Brick Road's Atlanta tribute to Elton John, and a showing of Drumline with a performance by Exclusive Percussion on October 17th. So we hope to see you all there. Our Cobb County Home Saver program is still taking applications. To date, we've had 715 people apply. Of those, 59 are complete applications, and of those 59, 15 have already been approved for funding. So be sure to go to cobbhomesaver.org and fill out your application. Taste of the Fair. Even though the North Georgia Fair, State Fair has been canceled this year, we are excited about the Taste of the Fair coming up September 25th through 27th and October 2nd through the 4th. This will allow you to get your fair fix on food, and this will also benefit Must Ministries. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Gamble. Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you. Last Wednesday, Stephen Myers walked through Powder Springs and stopped to talk with veterans about PTSD. Stephen has spent 22 years in the U.S. Army and is walking across America to raise awareness about PTSD. And the city of Powder Springs was gracious enough to host him and Carl Curtis, a Marine who was with him, walking across America. Next slide. Okay, the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen explore the history and heroism of the first African-American pilots to fly in combat during World War II. Come by and visit the American Legion post for the Traveling Tuskegee Airmen exhibit. It will be on display from August 31st through September 9th from 12 to 6 p.m. at American Legion Post 296, 906 West Atlanta Street. So please go by and visit if you can. You only have a few more days, but and I plan to go before the 9th because I'm sure it's a great exhibit. And thanks to Post 296 for doing this. The Marion Museum of History proudly presents their new exhibit, Votes for Women, a portrait of persistence to celebrate the centennial of women's suffrage in the U.S. The Marietta Museum of History is open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. And also check the website for COVID-19 related closings or holidays. Admission is $7, $5. Seniors and students 5 and under are free. The Town Center CID and Alliance are announcing the temporary closing of Aviation Park and the adjacent Noonday Creek Trail section on Sunday, September 13th and Sunday, September 20th from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. The reason for this is the airplane is being installed in front of the tower, and they have to close the park because of the cranes and equipment putting it in. So thank you. Temple Cole Elmeth will be holding their first session with ADL on Wednesday night, virtual Zoom meeting, September 9th at 7:30. It is a 3-part series of a 2-hour interactive workshops that examine issues of privilege, bias, and gain the skills to respond to incidents of bias and hate. This is Canine Brave. I had the pleasure of meeting him on the tour last week of the new training center. He was purchased, he's a Dutch Shepherd, brindle-colored Dutch Shepherd. He was purchased with a donation from the Atlanta Braves and it began his career as a police canine on February 14th. And they just brought him around to meet me. Everybody knows the canines are my favorites. And we also had a tour of the new training facility in Commissioner Cupid's district. You've got to go see it. It's awesome. It was an old BJ's warehouse, and you can get lost in there without a tour guide. So put on your walking shoes and ask Chief Cox to arrange for a tour. But it's a great facility. We started out with lunch at Giovanni's, which is right next to it. and actually Juan, the owner, took the tour with us. So don't forget to celebrate Constitution Week, September 17th through 23rd. Raise awareness about our Constitution and our freedoms that we celebrate. And also look for announcements and things going on with regard to the county and District 3 in my newsletter. And then you don't have a slide for this, but I just want to clarify on the nonprofit vote. I never said that Must Ministries or Sweetwater Mission or CFR were not accountable or reputable companies, they are organizations. They are very much so. And I have the utmost of faith. My concern was one vendor. All the other ones that we have approved have had one vendor. And I just think it's just concerning that with the CARES Act money that we have to be so careful, and I just think it's better going through one vendor. Had one of those 3 vendors been brought forward, or one of the 7 vendors initially been brought forward, that I asked if that was a possibility, but it wasn't. So, thank you.
Commissioner Cupid?
I've served on this board for 8 years, and this is not the first time that there's a double standard on this board for some versus others, and that was clear today. But I've served on this board 8 years and still continue to work with commissioners, support commissioners, propose ideas, because you learn to keep your head up high and you stay focused on what the goal is at hand. And you learn to treat people in ways that you hope that they will treat you. And that is what I'll continue to do despite today's glaring disappointment, not only for me, but for the many people that have worked on a proposal for the past month. We had a proposal brought to us Friday that was approved without vetting it by the board over a holiday in 4 days. Meanwhile, we've had the partnership of our magistrate court, of Cobb Community Foundation, of Must Ministries, of the Center for Family Resources, of Sweetwater Mission. We've worked with other nonprofits who we've met with on occasion to talk about this. And I'm sorry, the request for me to narrow it down to one agency is not how I operate as a commissioner. I've always been a commissioner about partnership, because I realize none of us can do this alone. It takes the strength of us working together to have the best long-term impact that we can have on our county and our residents, period. When we work with our agencies that have worked with us, we're not talking about helping people through December. We're talking about helping people into Cobb's continuing presence here in this state of Georgia. Because these have been partners that have been working with us for decades before. They'll be partners working with whoever sits on this dais decades after we're gone. I value that. When our organizations came to me and wanted to put the proposal in front of the commissioners at a meeting in August, I said, no, let me give them time to vet it. Because that is the respect I would want as a commissioner. Again, the way you treat people may not be the way that they treat you, but I will always hold myself to the best of my ability to that standard, to bring as many people to the table as possible and to get the input of others. I have never seen in my 8 years, nor would I ever do something as underhanded to see somebody work on something and simultaneously bring something to be considered at that same moment. I don't know how you think that builds relationship. I don't know how you think you should be regarded in a similar circumstance, but I would never reciprocate that kind of action to anyone on this board. It undermines our ability to work together and trust each other as a board. Again, I'm disappointed, but my head is always held high. At the end of the day, we are all about serving as many people as possible, and the proposal today does that. Unfortunately, what the proposal will not do today is to maintain a positive relationship. Well, it will. You always have to be positive, but I believe some relationships have been impacted by the decision that took place today. It undermines the trust of this board and our partners. And if I'm disappointed, it's in that as well. But at the end of the day, we are here to hopefully keep as many people from being evicted as possible. These are people that I work with, that I see, that I go to the supermarket with, that live in my neighborhood. I'm grateful that there's something to be able to address their need, regardless of who does it. Regardless of who does it. Getting to the announcements that I had prepared for today, a partner in our community, Hope Family Resource Center, is providing after-school meals. We're grateful for Carolyn and all that she does in our community. She serves also as a member of one of our boards here at the county with the tax assessor. If you are interested in getting prepackaged hot meals, I encourage you to please reach out at the phone number that's listed on the screen at 678-310-0525 or email at hopefamily2@gmail.com. There is a program that Georgia DOT is having to strengthen the working relationship that the state has with our DBEs. And this program, which is going to be on September 10th, is going to be with a DBE partner, Joy Roadfox of Roadfox Construction, and she'll be talking about how she's helped to create a successful business here working in the state of Georgia. For those that are interested, the text here is small. You can always, there's a phone number here. You can reach out to 404-946-5764, or you can email dbemip@dot.ga.gov. And again, that's a little bit hard to read, but if you go to my weekly newsletter, the slide is on there where you get that information directly. WorkSource Cobb, another partner of Cobb County, does a lot of great work in providing different job postings to the commissioners, and I want to do my best to make sure that the public gets this because there are a lot of great opportunities for people to strengthen their training or to become retrained so that they can have gainful employment during this time. Right now, there is a number of trainings that are at no cost to Cobb County residents. Please visit cobbworks.org and learn more about what you can do to connect with these opportunities and connect others with these opportunities as well. Finally, time is running out as we speak about nonprofits. There was modification of the business grant program to include grants for our nonprofits. The applications are due Friday, September 11th at 5 p.m. We encourage you to please go to selectcobb.com/NFP grants so that your organization can learn about how they can tap into some resources to help stabilize the work that you're doing here in our county. And those are all of my
Thank you, Commissioner.
presentations. Thank you.
Commissioner Ott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad's going to pull up the slides here. We had a big birthday week in District 2 this week. Where's the first one, Brad? I think that's not the first one. There we go. Miss Jane Agati celebrated 99 years last week. And you probably think in this picture that she just kind of sat around to celebrate her birthday. Well, let me show you what happened. And through the great efforts of the county fire and police, she had visitors, 3 fire engines, 3 police cars, but the best was the dancing in the streets. 99 years old, young, dancing in the streets. So I want to commend and thank the Cobb County Fire Department and Police Department. I was told afterwards that y'all made her day. She just could not believe that so many firefighters and police officers came out to help her celebrate. And you can see that she has a lot of spirit. So on another birthday front, a little bit younger, is Ansley. And if you read my newsletter, you might have read a little bit about what Ansley did for her birthday party. Instead of asking for gifts, she asked for food donations. So this is just some kind of pictures. And once again, Public Safety was there to help celebrate and make this young lady's birthday special. I think the next slide shows the food donations. And this just kind of talks a little bit about what she wanted to do. She made over $1,000 for fire and police. And you can see some of the food. So congratulations on both young ladies for their special birthdays. Okay, next slide. So normally we see Commissioner Burrell showing us the veterans who adopted a dog. Well, last week was a special week for my assistant, Kim. As you can see, she came, she saw, she saved a life. She adopted 4 years and 9, well, she's 4 years and 9 months as a Cobb County employee. So congratulations on your service. She adopted an 8-month-old, how do you say that, Joanne? Shih Tzu mix. And his name is Murphy.
Cute.
And he is working on potty training. And as Kim will tell you, she's making sure that he is a boat dog, because she likes to go out on the boat, and so she is training him young. So thank you, Kim, for your service to District 2, and welcome to your new family member.
Bring him to meet Splash.
Okay, those of you that might get the Atlanta Journal paper, there was a great article about the Mighty Mask. We put this in the newsletter last week. Interesting information about the masks. You can see the difference between a homemade mask, an off-the-shelf cone mask, and a folded handkerchief as to their effect on exhalation from your, when you're breathing. I thought it was very useful information. Like I said, it was in our newsletter. Next slide, Brad. Here's some do's and don'ts. I think most of them were pretty self-explanatory. Probably the biggest thing that we've read is about keeping them clean. I have to remind my son all the time, right, that you got to clean the thing to make it work better. I actually saw an article yesterday that said that the rice cookers or the electric pots, that if you don't have any water in them and you just put the mask inside of them with just the heat, it will actually sanitize your mask, and it keeps its filtration pretty much to its original level. So interesting information about the masks. Next slide. Okay, for those parents that have had enough of homeschooling, Commissioner Cupid, I know you've been homeschooling for a while here, but there's some opportunities up at Camp Evergreen on coming up on September 19th and October 17th. It's just kind of a family fun day, get away from the hustle and bustle of here and get up to the mountains and spend some time doing some kind of fun things. Next slide. And as Commissioner Burrell said, tomorrow night at 7:30 at Temple Colmeth is the first in the 3-part series hosted by the ADL to just basically stop the hate and start the discussion and educate youth as to why the hateful things that happened a couple of weeks ago are not right. And then there is not a slide for this one, but once again, another shout out for our GIS folks. Jen Lana from the GIS wrote this to staff and says, GIS and data analytics have taken center stage during COVID-19. We are honored to be recognized as part of the advancement in the U.S. Thanks to Harvard University for another recognition of our program, and to all of you for your continued support of our amazing team at Cobb. The article in the Harvard magazine, it basically said, in Cobb County, Georgia, the government has turned to crowdsourcing tools and surveys to keep the public informed. For example, the county has a survey that grocery store patrons can fill out after shopping to help keep others informed about inventory, as well as whether the store is putting protections in place in accordance with CDC guidelines. They have also used these same crowdsourcing tactics to help residents find job openings near their homes, or to find food assistant locations, child care programs, and emergency medical facilities, among others. So kudos to our GIS staff for a job well done. And speaking of jobs, every week Kim puts into our newsletter job listings that we have come across for folks in the area. So in addition to Cobb Workforce, we do have jobs listed in our newsletter. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ott. Just a couple of notes here. Just want to remind everybody that September 11th is Patriots Day. Hopefully the day that we'll never forget. It's truly changed our history. And I want to commend Jason Gaines and his team at Community Development on the census update. We have surpassed our record in 2010, and I think why this is so significant is that we did this during the pandemic, and we still have another 3 weeks, a little bit more than 3 weeks to go even higher. So my hat's off to Jason. But let's fill out the census, those that you can. This is really important for how the government allocates funding for us in the future. And I can assure you, every district in this county could use federal assistance in some way, shape, or form. And the last thing is that I'm really pleased to see that the schools will be going back into session starting this week, I believe, in some cases. That's a reflection on the public working with us on this education plan campaign on reducing and mitigating the virus. I know there's a lot of controversy about face mandates, but I really believe that in this county, that if we ask the county, if we ask you to work with us in partnership on a goal, we can accomplish something that will be as instrumental as implementing some learned behaviors, the importance of wearing a mask. So again, the 3 W's: wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. And we're seeing the benefit of that right now as businesses start to come back to life, as kids go back to school, which I know pleases a lot of parents in this county. And we can look forward to a fall where it's not going to be like it used to be, but it's going to be better than it used to be. So let's keep up the great work, and I thank you for all that you've done out there to help us mitigate the impact of the current COVID-19 crisis. And with that, we're adjourned.